What up? Seth, Miranda here. This is Adorama Rewind. Not such a crazy week, but there's some really interesting stuff to talk about. We're going to get into that, but first, I want to say thanks to all you who've been subscribing to Adorama TV because we're this close to getting to 1 million subscribers, and you're part of it. So thanks for being 1 in a million. If you haven't, hit subscribe, hit the bell, get notified when new content comes out, and you know every time Adorama hits a milestone, they repay the community as best they can, and we can't do this without you, so you're as important as we are to creating this content, so it's a 50-50 partnership here, kids. Thanks so much for being part of it. All right, let's get into this, and let's start talking trash about Elon Musk for a second. Yeah, the Elon Musk, Tesla Elon Musk, is blocking people who say photographers should be credited. Let's dissect this. So pretty much Elon Musk found this photo of a launch and there's lightning here and he wrote, "Ride the lightning," and there's a little watermark here. What he didn't do was retweet this from the original photographer, who is Richard Engel, which, by the way, if that's really your name as a photographer, that's pretty baller. He says, well, this is cool, my watermark is there, and that's totally a sarcastic comment because he was basically saying, like, well, he could have at least retweeted it or added my tag on there so that I could have gotten some exposure from it. Because if you look over here, he has 27 plus million followers, 1,000 comments hit this, 6,000 retweets, and 70,000 likes, none of which went towards his photographer. And Elon Musk clearly found some sort of value in this image. The guy wasn't asking for money or anything like that. He's just like, hey, I shot the image. I'd like some credit. That image would not have existed for you to put out there unless I created it. So aside from the whole, like, he didn't retweet it or credit the guy, at least he didn't take his watermark off the image. But other photographers jumped onto Twitter and was like, yo, Elon Musk, you should credit the photographer. And one by one, Elon Musk, Tesla, SpaceX, all that just kept blocking these people who said this guy should be accredited. And that just feels like with you have that much ambition and energy to block people that are saying you should do the right thing and credit people who created the content you're pushing around to keep fueling your social media or whatever you want to call it. You have that ambition and energy, but you couldn't just go, hey, cool shot, Richard Engel. What? Yeah, have fun in the comments with that down below. I would love to hear everyone sound off on that one. I can't believe this is where we're at these days. Let's go into a little bit of gear news. So Elinchrom unveils the ELM8, the most versatile continuous LED light, as they say. If you can see that it's a pretty much a monolight style body, and this pretty much looks just like the Profoto B10 video Daniel Norton did. It is 8,000 lumens at 1 meter or 16,320 lux at a meter, CRI of 93. And this is what you're looking at with the images. So unlit and lit with it. Elinchrom with the Rotolux system has some great modifiers, really great stuff. This is going to be priced at around $1,700, which is probably around the price of like a pretty a well-powered strobe, I'd say. So whether you like working with constant light or strobe is another story, but we're looking at a lot of more companies that make strobe going into making these hybrid lighting systems for constant light so that people can do video and photo, which is what we're seeing in the mirrorless systems, right? So we're starting to see more and more gear come out that's becoming more hybrid. The interesting thing about this one, though, is that it actually has an IP54 rating, which means that it's actually protected against like dust and water. So it's pretty tough. It says it can handle a meter of a drop. Like it's shock resistant for a meter. I mean, if you look at it, it looks pretty robust. This thing looks like it could take a bit of a hit. And of course, LEDs don't have like a filament or some glass in there to break. So I believe it. Let me know if that's something that interests you. We've seen even Broncolor, right, come out with these mono light body styled LEDs that were super corrected. I think up to like 99 CRI, which was a ton of engineering going into that. Let me know. I'm pretty curious about that. Another little piece of gear news, Li 100 tandem adapters. You can actually put on more than one slide-in filter onto your lens and stack them and spin them, which is pretty cool. They've done this before, but this is like the newer iteration of it. I think that they're about 30 to 60 bucks depending on what system you're getting. So check that out. If you are a landscape photographer, that's probably pretty cool for you. Let's talk about this one though. Panano to start charging for stitching services, and customers are furious. I don't blame them. So this is the camera they put out. This camera was about $2,400, I believe. Yeah, $2,400. and it was a 360-degree camera, and the images would be stitched to create like a super panoramic, right? Well, now they're saying if you want to get those pictures stitched together by their software, it's going to cost you a little under $1 an image. That's kind of crazy. It's one thing if you state that at the time of purchase when people are buying something, but to have them buy the product and then later on go, oh, we can't support this, you're going to start paying for the processing of the images. And keep in mind, there is no other way to stitch these images. They're proprietary. Their software is working in a certain specific manner. You can't just go and do it yourself. It's just like raw files not being interpreted by other softwares and things like that. So this is kind of crazy. Let me know if you're someone that bought this system. I'm really curious about that. Someone did argue like, hey, when you shot film, you took photos and then still had a cost after the fact. And that's totally true. There's always cost after the fact, whether you think there isn't or not. But to go into a system that basically says every time you shoot with it, you're gonna have to spend money to process the images, but with not saying this at the time of purchase is the real issue here. So, whoa, yeah, I don't know. I wonder if more people bought the camera, would they have the resources to have free stitching, or was it just like undersold? I don't know. You tell me what's going on out there. And we're on a down note, let's stay there. The Google Pixel 3 is reporting defects. So the camera has image stabilization in it. It has optical stabilization. People are saying they can actually physically hear the lenses, just the elements in the lenses just keep moving and clicking, and the images still have a shake to them. So this is kind of, especially the video, you can actually see the stabilization moving around. It was supposed to make it steadier, but apparently there's a defect, and they're saying that there is no solution for this as of yet. Google hasn't even addressed this yet. In fact, if you just go like, hey, Google Pixel 3 defect, Google Pixel 3, I'm sure now Google will hear it. But yeah, that kind of sucks. Let me know if you're someone that got caught up in the Google Pixel 3 and have this defect. Did you not even realize it was there? Is it something that you just thought you weren't doing correctly? Or did you find a solution for it? Let me know down below in the comments. But in some elevated gear news, Samsung is teasing an upcoming 108 megapixel sensor for your phone. Yeah, this is kind of nuts. So we saw them make a 64 megapixel sensor for phones, and now they're teasing 108 megapixels. What they're basically saying is that it's going to shoot and downsample, which is what we talked about last time they put out a high resolution smartphone sensor. A lot of people were thinking it would give you a lot of noise, and myself included, because it's a small sensor, you're usually shooting in lower light, things like that. But they're basically saying it would actually downsample to almost 16 megapixel images. But it's just starting off with as much information as it can with the Bayer system on these sensors. In fact, I think there is here. This is basically what they're saying, that it keeps downsampling. So let me know if that's something that interests you. I'm kind of curious if resolution in your camera phone is something you think about. I feel like we just kind of jump onto the next iteration of our own phones, right? Like iPhone people just tend to go on to the next iPhone, whatever is in there is in there. But do you actually put weight on the resolution of the sensor in those phones? Would you switch from iOS to Android or Android to iOS based on something like that? I don't know. I'm really curious what the market is for that, or what people actually care about in their phones, right? I mean, they're saying that phones are eating into cameras every day, the sales that is. Is this one of those factors? Let me know. Kind of curious about that. Let's go back to social media really quick. Major Instagram ad partner banned for tracking users' locations. Yeah. So this ad partner, Hyper, which is Hyper with a 3 for the E because they're so modern and progressive. They've been doing some shady things. They found a security lapse in Instagram. And what that allowed them to do, I'll put it up right here, you can read right here, the security lapse to continue scraping users' location data. Then they saved public Instagram stories, which were supposed to dissipate after 24 hours. And then they also, while they were in there, just scraped all the public available data, like follower accounts and likes and stuff like that, which isn't like the craziest thing, but they farmed that data. And Instagram was like, nah, chill. The craziest one is that they used the location data and they went around a security like gap or hole shotted in there to find that data and took it when they could. This is not a partnership. That's a leech, if you ask me. You know, we talk about how intrusive social media is as a whole. And we're also putting a ton of our own data out there on our own free will to be part of this. This is kind of bananas. I don't know. Good on you, Instagram, for taking action on this, but in the end, I think we can all be rest assured that the reality of it is that Instagram's like, yo, that's our data, and we know the value of our data. Like, don't kid yourself that they're total innocent here on that one. But let's keep going with that. Instagram is owned by Facebook, and Facebook has finally launched Instagram scheduling through Creator Studio. Yeah, so you can now schedule your Instagram posts and your IGTV broadcasts ahead of time, so you can pre-create content, get it all set up, and then release it. We've seen this in third-party apps like Later or something like that, and people would actually pay a service to have the ability to really map out their social media and just have it go, especially for working professionals that can't pay attention to their pages as much as they could to grow their social presence. This is pretty awesome. Us here at Adorama, we do a lot on IGTV. We put a heavy poker chip down on that one, and this is pretty awesome to, I should say roulette chip. You don't really throw a poker, whatever. Anyway, this is pretty great. Facebook changed their publishing tools to the Creator Studio. I myself am still kind of learning how to navigate it, especially when we do the live streams from here at Adorama. We do it through the Facebook Creator Studio. This is pretty great, seeing things integrated. I'm wondering if people will still pay for a third-party apps though. Like, is there something here that they won't get that they get with places like Later? Let me know down below in the comments if you're someone that already is actively using third-party apps to schedule your Instagram posting, and let me know if this is something that either interests you or there's just something it's missing. I really want to know about that. Tell me down below. Let's get back into gear news. Blackmagic dropped a pretty big release on this one. Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 6K with an EF mount. That's right, Canon glass on a pocket, relative pocket, Canon camera that's 6K. It is Super 35 as the sensor size, so it's bigger than the Blackmagic Pocket 4K, and it's gonna have full-size HDMI ports, mini XLRs, mic jack, all that stuff, but really the Super 35 size sensor, the 6K is really the big deal here, and of course the Canon EF mount, so anyone that's been shooting with EF glass, you just transfer over to this, and the price point is $2,400, which could definitely make some people who are going to jump towards hybrid systems like the Sony Alpha Series A7, the A7 III, or maybe the Nikon Z6 or something like that for video. Maybe they're going to steer more towards this for the 6K and the EF mount and all this other stuff, because the EF glass has been very favored by videographers out there over the years. So are you someone that just bought the 4K Blackmagic and this is kind of making you go, or is this something that's making you really define your decisions away from a hybrid system like full frame mirrorless? Let me know down below if that's something you're interested in and why. It does seem pretty awesome, and Blackmagic has definitely been disturbing the industry with like lower price points, more versatility. Oh, and of course there's a 5-inch touchscreen on it, because why not, right? Let's talk about some fun stuff though. This is really cool. Venus Optics yet again has released a 4mm f2.8 for micro four thirds, but the real thing is it's a circular fisheye with 210-degree field of view. What? Yeah, that means that it stretches beyond the 180 barrier and actually can see behind itself. Check this out. First of all, who doesn't love farm animals looking like they're at a peephole knocking on your door? Look at this, this is great. But what you're really seeing here is this circular fisheye that has a super wide field of view, but it's actually it's pretty sharp, and you can have a lot of fun with this. I mean, this is right, let's see. This is nuts, porthole looking view. Of course, there's going to be some distortion towards the edges, but dead center, you're pretty good. It's pretty well corrected, and this is pretty funny. I thought that was great. The price point is super friendly at $200, something to throw in your bag. If you're shooting something and you want to just try something completely abstract, chuck this on there. Of course, you can shoot crop in if you wanted to, all sorts of stuff, play with the flares on it, see what it can really do, and see how light transmissions through it and stuff, or what distorts, really play with the edges of that circle, you know, make someone's arm stretch around it, whatever. Have fun with it. I just like that Venus is really thinking of what other glass they can create out there at a high quality level, not just like, let's throw some cheap gimmick glasses out there, but it looks like they really focus on the engineering first, and then there's like some cool feature to it. So there's that. In some other gear, Canon is patenting eye-controlled autofocus and wireless charging for cameras. So this we've seen before, a really long time ago, like the EOS 3, then maybe the EOS 7 or something like that. What that basically means is when you're in the viewfinder, wherever your eye is looking, there's a sensor that's checking where you are in the frame with your eyeball, and that's where it focuses. I tried it years ago and I wasn't into it because I'm a big believer in like focusing then recomposing. So unless I'm staying there looking at that part of the frame, it's going to focus elsewhere, especially in the makeup industry. Like you want to focus on lips, but you're looking at the eye and things like that. It's all sorts of stuff. But I could see people being into it. So it's kind of like reverse eye autofocus, right? We're trying to like lock onto eyes in the frame, but now this is trying to lock on our own eye to track where we want to focus. Oh, man, okay. Yeah, but this existed before in their film cameras, so I'm curious if they're working on this to bring it into their R system. This, of course, is a rumor, but it is patented, so I had to talk about it. And the wireless charging is pretty cool too, especially if you're a studio photographer and you tether maybe, instead of like just putting your camera down and working for a bit and then having to change the battery throughout the day. You can just go onto a plate that will just keep it charged with no cords or anything like that, which is pretty awesome. It's probably really great for like rental houses too, right? They just put a whole bunch of Canon stuff onto this charging plate and it charges instead of having to like find 1,000 outlets with proprietary chargers and stuff like that. Another thing that Canon has patented though is a 50 to 80 millimeter f1.1 design. Whether this lens comes to fruition is another story, but a 50 to 80 millimeter f1.1 is pretty bananas. They did have like a pretty hard to find 50 millimeter f1 at one point. So they have thought in this direction before. It looks like they're really putting a lot into their optics for the next systems. Whether this really comes to isn't the case, what we're really looking at is their thought process of what they could innovate and put out there and what they could expand on if they don't actually do it. So this is pretty interesting. What's going to come is going to be so interesting. What we've seen this past year has only been the start of these camera systems shifting into mirrorless from DSLR, or looking at different autofocus systems or whatever else, right? We're just seeing their first cards down on the table, but we haven't seen their whole deck yet. So the next couple of years, I think we're really going to be defining the mirrorless shift. We'll see who really has the progressive technology and who doesn't, and of course, people buying into their market. So we'll see what happens going forward. This was a pretty cool article. Photographer every now and then throws something really against the wall, and it's just interesting. So they took non-photographers, people that don't really shoot, never really held cameras, and they gave them Phase 1 cameras. Yeah, they gave them the Phase 1 XF IQ4 and just said, hey, have fun with it. And the video is kind of cool. It's basically people going like, whoa, and not realizing the amount of detail they could see in an image. And I guarantee you it's people that don't really look at high resolution images normally. They're usually probably used to web quality images. So they're not even like the shock and awe of seeing detail and sharpness to them is probably like, whoa. But what was really shocking to them really was the price point. Those cameras are $52,000 that they're holding in their hands. Some people never even own a car that costs that much money, right? So this was pretty cool. Check that link out. It was a lot of fun. That's what I'm going to leave you guys with on the news. And I'm going to wrap up this week with the comments from last week. We talked about how social media is kind of addictive, right? And they're trying to pass a bill to limit and regulate these social platforms from allowing the addiction to happen by, stopping infinite scrolling, stopping autoplay, giving users mandatory breaks on the platform. And a lot of you went completely polar opposites. You were like, that's regulation, we can't have that, it's the first part of censorship. And then other people like Dominic over here was saying things like addiction is a mental illness and has severe consequences on life, and the people who suffer from it. As much as alcohol, cigarettes, drugs, we must recognize that there are people out there making profits out of the health condition. It is not different for screen addiction. Listen, I totally agree with you. I'm not saying there is no addiction. What I'm saying is, if there wasn't this, there'd be something else. If they can profit off of something that you're going to constantly buy into, like alcohol, cigarettes, screen addiction, right? The addiction that social media is based off of is human validation. We're constantly trying to be validated for what we're putting out there with likes, positive comments, or just letting people know that we're out there living our lives and existing. And then the other side of that is knowing what's around us, right? People are addicted to like, oh, what was the next thing people are going to talk about? What happened on that show last night? Oh, the season finale of this. They get addicted to minute things because it's fast ingestion of stimulant, right? And then you go to work and people are talking about it and you don't want to be left out. You want to be validated that you're part of the conversation. That's where it comes from. So they can do whatever they want to these social platforms, and we're going to have to deal with it because that's their backyard and we're just hanging out in there. But in the end, it's up to us to regulate ourselves and use these social media platforms as tools and resources rather than crutches and addictions and serotonin. You know, like it's really up to us, because if once they regulate this, there'll be something else. No one saw social media coming. No one would have thought that everybody on the planet could have their own channel. You know, it's kind of crazy. And while I hear both sides, and people really went at me on this one, and I will say I really appreciate the respectful, civil debates on this rather than yelling at me. There'll always be something. There'll always be something that they can sell to you, and there'll always be something that they're looking to sell to you multiple times. You know, I come from the makeup industry in my career, and if there's one thing I've seen, it's like they use up a product and they go back and buy more of it, and then they come up with something new, which isn't really new. How many times are they going to reinvent red lipstick, right? And they sell that to them as well. So addiction happens on many levels for many reasons, but it'll always be there. And in the end, it's filtered through us as people, and that's what I truly believe, that the end user it's up to yourself, okay? All right, I'm gonna cut it there, but the question of the week, I wanna know, because we're approaching 1 million subscribers, tell me, what is the defining trait or thing about someone's platform that makes you hit follow or subscribe? What is it that you look for? What's that final click that goes, I checked it out and now I wanna follow it? What brings you to the point of clicking that subscribe button, hitting follow? Is it their content? Is it their personality? Is it that you connected? Is it that they provide you a valuable resource? Is it just ridiculousness? I'm sure there's multiple reasons, and multiple people have 1,000 different reasons for why they follow different things. I mean, I follow some of the most ridiculous stuff ever. My new thing is koala bears, just to say. So let me know down below what makes you hit the subscribe button. All right. I'm going to get out of here. I will see you guys soon. Oh, I forgot to tell you, I'm going to be going live right here on Adorama's Facebook tomorrow. I'll be shooting a live demo, character lighting. Please join me if you're not in New York. If you're in New York, come hang out. If you're watching this in the future, the video will be in facebook.com/Adorama. Their video library is where all my demos are, if you want to check that out. And I will be returning to Adorama's IGTV with more demos. I will see you guys there. Thank you so much. Peace.